Halloween is just around the corner, or at least it is as of the making of this video. By the time you see it, it might already be Halloween, or perhaps it's already passed. Anyway, Halloween is arguably one of the best holidays, at least in my opinion. It's not very widely celebrated here in Sweden, but I just like the spooky feels it gives. And what better way to commemorate this spooky season than to make a special Halloween event for it in Mistwinter Bay. I'm Wogglawooh, and let's get on with the video. To start off with, no, the people in Mistwinter Bay do not celebrate Halloween. Therefore, we had to figure out a scenario for the event that would make sense both in the game but also in real life to still give the feeling of Halloween. Also, it would have to be pretty quick to make since we came up with this idea fairly late. What we eventually decided on was for the player, Jack and Sophia to be stuck in the player's house during a thunderstorm and busy themselves with telling ghost stories to each other. The player gets to create their own story with 625 possible combinations. This is done by choosing between 5 dialogue options at 4 different times. This means that the event can be played 5 different times before it's even possible to have picked all of the dialogue options once. And what about the content of the story? It can be scary, or it can make absolutely no sense. It's up to the player to decide what their story should be about. Just writing the event took around 8 hours, and it ended up being a total of 12,000 words long. Of course, that's with all the different paths included. The actual event when experienced in game will be much shorter. This event is already a little special, so we decided to go the extra mile and implement a rating system to determine if the story the player made was any good or not. This was done by giving each option a positive or negative score. Cliché answers were given a score of 0, since they're not good nor bad. A special option is rewarded differently depending on the setting of the story. You get to choose both the setting and the villain in the story. If the setting is on land and you choose a mermaid as the villain, you'll receive -5 points because logically the mermaid would have already been dead long ago. However, if the setting is close to water, it makes more sense for a mermaid to be the villain, so you'll receive +2 points instead. Basically, in the whole event, if you make a good story, you will be rewarded. Likewise, if you make a very bad story, so that it's unique but not particularly scary, you will also be rewarded. Otherwise, you will get no benefits. This way you can compete with Jack and Sophia to see who has the best story. Implementing the new event took a while, 5.5 hours to be exact. Not just because of the high word count and the abundance of different possible options, but also because we wanted some special effects to match the spooky setting. I keep saying we as if I actually did something. Anyway, my brother implemented thunder both through visual and auditory effects. Unfortunately, it's only applied to the background, because if we try to put it on the characters, their eyes and mouths would still be unaffected since they're constantly being animated. Basically, it would look really stupid. With all the dialogue, expression changes, sound effects, visual effects, and dialogue options implemented, it was time for some playtesting to make sure it all actually worked. And work it did. With that being said, I'll leave it to my brother to read you an example of one of the stories you can create in-game. This is the result of choosing certain dialogue options during the event to piece together a coherent story. Let's settle down and listen.
Once upon a time, there was a diligent farmer tilling the lands of a small village. The farmer worked tirelessly day and night, like generations of farmers had done. The farmer thought little about the world outside the village and had no reason to leave the farm. That is, until a great famine hit. The farmer's field would no longer provide food and everyone in the village began to starve. As the most reliant individual in the village, the farmer was chosen to go out in the world and try to find a place where the villagers could stay and start anew. So the farmer left to look for a bountiful land. After traveling for a while, the farmer happened upon the first settlement in a long time. It was not an ordinary settlement, however, for it was naught but a large castle on a hill. One glance was enough to deduce that the castle was unoccupied and had been so for a long time. The tall walls were crumbling and the buildings inside them were derelict. Tall spires and towers reached for the dark night sky, crowned by wind-torn flags encircled by screaming crows. It was far from an inviting place, but it was the first building that the farmer had come upon, so for that reason it was worth investigating. The farmer climbed the many steps leading up to the castle, crossed the empty courtyard, and entered. There was nothing but echoing halls inside. Moth-eaten carpets and crumbling pillars decorated once grand rooms. Broken, stained glass windows told stories of grandeur that were never to be lived again. The roof was leaking, but the farmer found a dry spot in a corner, big enough for a few hours worth of rest. The farmer suspected that the castle did not have the answers the farmer sought, but it was too late to continue the journey that day. The farmer had never been one to travel at night. As the farmer sat down, cawing crows disguised the sound of footsteps crossing the deserted halls of the castle. The darkness grew thicker as a figure hid in the depths of the night. Suddenly, a slightly pale, human-like creature jumped out of the shadows, right towards the farmer. Screaming, the farmer bolted up, narrowly avoiding the creature's bared fangs. Backing away from the creature, the farmer could see it clearly and determine what it was. It was a human, but at the same time not. Unlike regular humans, it was paler, as if having been confined to a sickbed for months. Its corner teeth were so long they resembled a beast's fangs. The creature had a female silhouette, but was clearly not a human woman, since she neither blinked nor breathed. Hissing at the farmer, the creature, evidently a vampire, threw itself at the farmer, trying to sink its fangs in the farmer's neck. The vampire's goals were evident, and the farmer was not keen on seeing them brought to fruition. There was no choice but for the farmer to deal with the situation. As the creature got closer for the attack, the farmer locked eyes with it. Looking into the vampire's eyes, a fear stronger than the thickest stone wall gripped the farmer's heart and mind. Whimpering, the farmer collapsed on the ground, shaking uncontrollably. The vampire's face contorted into something akin to a smile. Then it attacked. The scream of the farmer was heard far and wide by humans and animals alike. Every living being who heard the terrible sound knew that someone met a gruesome end. How gruesome, no one would know, for there would be nothing left of the farmer to find. The vampire had gotten what it wanted, and the farmer was no more. To this day, it is said that the farmer's shrieks can still be heard, both where they met their end and in the place they once called home. So if you ever hear the ethereal screams of someone being torn to shreds, but see no signs of a struggle, you can expect a vampire to appear and introduce you to the long-gone farmer.
Once the full game is released, you'll get a chance to create your own spooky story. At least if you happen to get this specific event during a playthrough. But that's about it for this special Halloween video. Hopefully you found it interesting to see a bit of the process of how we make these events. If you want to see more Mistwinter Bay content, I suggest you subscribe, and if you want to support us on our game dev journey, you can follow us on Patreon. We offer sneak peeks, behind the scenes content, and exclusive Patreon content as well. That's it for now. I wish you all a very spooky Halloween.